hollow platitudes, bandied about by those who claim to have lost loved ones, limbs and livelihoods to birth, a nation that holds these ideals dear. Don't think that. Now, I want to tell you about my family. Many families have secrets. This refers to things that are never said to kids, as they believe they will now somehow harm the kids or encourage kids to do wrong and place themselves in harm's way. In my family, we had two secrets. That our name is Ngoyi, not Ngoye. The slight change to Ngoyi was intended to avoid harassment by the apartheid police by association with the name that they did not like of Mama Lillian Ngoyi. I don't use my surname Ngoyi. I've had a lot of friends who have said, go back to your surname. I will not do that because I do not want to write on the Ngoyi surname for political reasons. That's not who I am. That my mother was an activist was the second secret. That I learned at her funeral, when those who served as nurses with her felt it would not harm her to divulge her activism. I'm a daughter of Dora Ngoyi. I suspect, and I'm saying this so that you understand that I'm just me. I suspect that the reasons for hiding these things from us was intended to us focusing on things other than justice, fairness, and truth. If we knew of these things, so the logic went, we would be predisposed to fight for justice, fairness, and truth. These truths were hidden so that we would be professional. Professionals who ensure that we steer clear of trouble as we rise in the organization that we will serve as contributors to the economy. My parents took their meager resources and ensured that we attend schools, good schools. Our fees were always late. And my parents had to be accommodated by the nuns who ran our school as they battled to put together the necessary funds for basic education at a private school. Understanding the wishes of my parents and the paucity of their resources, I knew that they would not be able to afford my tertiary education. I therefore had to work very hard to get good marks at university, to apply for a bursary. I worked hard and I was awarded a bursary with my father's organization. I think it's important for me, program director, I thought it was necessary for you to show that I'm not here because I was done favors. I'm here, I earned it. I have worked very hard, extremely hard to be where I am. Well, through the education, I was also blessed to get articles at one of the big law firms in this country, which today calls itself Edward Nathan and Sonnenberg. It was Edward Nathan and Friedland at the time. I was also fortunate to work as a legal advisor at major banks. Standard Bank, Barclays Bank, Absa Bank. And then I joined Transnet because I believed at that time in my profession that I owed my country and I needed to go and work in the public sector and work for an SOE. I did that, not knowing I would be here today. So when the opportunity presented itself at Transnet, I took it with open arms. And it was good. It was at the time of Maria Ramos. I grew in leaps and bounds because I was afforded an opportunity to grow. And the group CFO at the time, Chris Wells, afforded us the opportunity to grow and to be professionals. So I did that for 5 years. The opportunity to join PRASA placed me in the C-suite of a boutique professional organization, Intersight. Now, Intersight is a subsidiary of PRASA, and it was meant to look after the assets of PRASA and to see if we can make money out of those assets to assist PRASA, because PRASA is, as we know, subsidized by the government. A lot of work that we did at Intersight. And whilst I was at Intersight, 8 months, within 8 months, I was requested to become the CEO at Intersight. I took up the position as CEO at Intersight. And for the 3 years that I remained CEO at Intersight, not once did we have an audit finding. In fact, we got certificates from the AG for clean audits. I was removed from Intersight, and I was asked to say, because of your legal background, I'm a lawyer by profession, an admitted attorney. Because of your legal background, we would like you to go and head up the legal function in PRASA. So it was an organizational restructuring. And I agreed to it, having been an executive. I did that, no qualms. In 2014, December, I was then asked, having started in my position as a group executive legal, risk and compliance, the similarities between Cynthia and myself in the risk portfolio. So what then happened? I was then asked to act as the group CEO of PRASA for a period of 2 months. This was December 2014 to January 2015. At that time, we had a new board under the stewardship of Ntate Popo Molefe. The major transactions, billions rands worth of transactions that the organization was embarking on. There was a particular transaction I will not forget. This particular transaction was worth more than 3 billion rands. The board had inquired and was told that the necessary processes were followed. The submission that was made to the board for that value was made a day before the board meeting. So you would have an appreciation that the board did not have time to apply its mind to the particular transaction. Now, mind me, I'm still my little self there. I mean, I don't even sit at the board, the group executive of legal risk and compliance. When that particular transaction was brought to the board, the group CEO at the time, Lucky Montana, left. He had promised that there was a property report that was done that would have given the board comfort that the transaction and the processes were properly followed. I was the one that had to say to the board, there is no such report. Now, at the time, I had to take the flak from the board because the reality was that we were all management and we were liars and we misled the board. But I knew that I am not going to go down that route. And at that time, from 2015, there was a target on my back. So I have been going through this since 2015. I must tell you that I refuse to be muzzled. And they know that I will not be silenced. And I make it very clear. There are many instances within the organization where you can fathom that within this position, I needed to sign off on transactions before they went to the group CEO for his final approval. They knew that this one was problematic. I knew they knew I was problematic. There was a deal for about 5-6 billion rands where PRASA had intended to outsource all its procurement processes to the DBSC. There's nothing wrong with that. The instruction comes to me, just to me. It says, approve, so that the group CEO can sign. I mean, I sit at Group Exco. I say to myself, this, hier kom kak, as I say, in Afrikaans. So then I said to myself, I will give this work to a senior manager to do, because I knew it. Trouble was coming for me, and I did that. In no time, where we identified the issues of non-compliance, I was put on special leave. In fact, my colleague who's sitting there, Tiro Holele, and I were put on special leave by the board, couched other reasons for doing so, but I knew the reason why I was put on special leave is because I was a nuisance in this regard. There was no policy for special leave at PRASA. I wasn't going to let it go. I asked them, I said, what instrument entitles you to place me on special leave? They kept quiet. I pushed. I wrote memos to the board. I said to them, you will answer me. And they didn't. In the end, the chairperson saw fit, but what was interesting was that the chairperson's letter was signed by the group CEO. Just didn't make sense. And the chairperson in that letter says to me, it was not our decision as the board to place you on special leave. It was the group CEO's decision. So I lodged a complaint against the group CEO, just to show that this game that you are playing, this is the wrong person that you're using to play. And I lodged a complaint against the group CEO. Naturally, I had to lodge it with the board. No response was received to date until that board was dismissed by the minister. I have stopped a lot of transactions. In fact, I was required to go to the Judicial Services Commission to become a witness to a matter where, once again, 60 million of PRASA's monies was siphoned out of the organization. It was taken out. It was paid. At the time, the finance department comes to me, Martha, we lost money. What are you going to do? Against the chairperson of the board, I wrote to the minister. And I said to the minister, Bladen Zamande, at the time, I said, you're going to help us, minister. PRASA's money is gone. We need to get it back. And this is against the chairperson of the board who went and she approved transactions where she did not even have authority to approve transactions to the value of that amount. I knew I wasn't going to let it go. We got judgment against us. In fact, what the chairperson did, she gave letters, in fact, an email to the other side's lawyers, telling them that I didn't have authority to act. The delegations of authority I get given by the board. So I thought to myself, voila, this is now the environment that we work in. We went to court. We fought the chairperson of the board. My life was in danger. I kept getting calls, dead calls. In fact, at some point, I got a call and I raised it with the CEO to say, listen, I got this call, I'm worried. The judge in that matter, Tochten, gave a scathing judgment against the chairperson of our board, who had at that time been sitting at the same bench with Tochten. It was bad, you can imagine. So I am now expected to go and be a witness for the Judicial Services Commission. I'm raising this, there's many more examples that I can give. When we were asked to go to the State Capture Commission, Tiro, I always look at him and I say, you know, had it not been for you, I don't know if I would have been here where I am. Because they called him and he said, you are coming with. And I went, and naturally, in my position, I knew there was nothing much I needed to come forth. And I went to the State Capture Commission. I don't know how many times I've been at the State Capture Commission, but what I recall is that my second day of giving evidence at the State Capture Commission, I went blank. I couldn't remember anything. That's how tormenting the process of sitting in that chair was. And people don't appreciate that. I stopped a lot of transactions, the 60 million, the 2.6 billion rands transaction, the Swifambo transaction, the Siangena transaction, which today is being reported in the newspaper that the current board of PRASA wants to settle. A judgment we won with a full bench. But today, the organization with the current board wants to enter into a settlement when it was found to have been an unlawful transaction. I'm not sure how you settle an unlawful transaction. Mathango is out. That nuisance, we can do this thing. They know if I was there, it would not even see the light of day. That's why I needed to be removed. So I am standing here and I am saying to you, our lives as whistleblowers, a lot has been said about the legislation. I mean, I was there on my own, and I want to acknowledge the people really that came to, I believe, my rescue. Coogan called me from Norway. I didn't know who Coogan was. Coogan saw the stories in the newspapers about me. She called me, she said, Martha, are you this person? I said, yes. She said, come. There's the Active Citizens Movement. We've seen your case in the newspaper. We want you to be part of it. There's John Clark, who called me and said, from a psychological perspective, come, let us talk. I was able to offload. Cynthia herself took me for lessons, yoga lessons. She said, let me offer you this assistance. Karam Singh there from Corruption Watch came and said, listen, you can do something. You can imagine at that time there were so many things that were happening. Karam advised us on the protected, I'm a lawyer by training. At the time when I was doing the work that I was doing, the Protected Disclosure Act was just something in the background. It was there, but I didn't actually consult with it thoroughly. When Karam said to us, here is an organization that can assist you, this is what you can do. That's what we did. Diro and I approached attorneys, and we were assisted to submit a case against PRASA at the CCMA for the Protected Disclosure Act. But I'd like to say to you, Program Director, also, the process was not easy because it's still not clear how you go about doing it. Whether can you go to the labor court straight, whether you can go to the CCMA straight. So we found ourselves over and above the issues that we've had to deal with. Now having to now sit back and study this piece of legislation and understand exactly what it is that we're doing. Talking to occupational detriment. We knew that the CCMA did not have jurisdiction to deal with the Protected Disclosure Act. We took it there. We were successful in that they referred it to the labor court. However, at the same time, with everything that has been happening, one was subjected to disciplinary hearings. Cynthia's story. No, before that, in fact, we were fired. I was fired. I was fired on the basis that my contract had expired. Now, I'm a permanent employee of PRASA. And I stand here and I say it. On the day that I was fired, I did not even know that I was going to be fired. I had been busy the whole day at Exco. Tiro Holele there and I are colleagues, and we sit at Exco together. There was a transaction of 5.4 billion rands that needed to be signed off. I knew the transaction from the back of my head, and I was very clear that we're not doing that transaction without security. And I made it very clear to Exco that it's not going to happen, because I'm not going to be accountable or explain how it is that we dispensed of a taxpayer's monies to institution without security. I didn't know that by speaking out that evening, I would receive my letter of termination. The following day, my name was in the newspapers, but you can imagine, I'm the group executive of legal, supposed to hold high standards. It's news that the head of legal is a fraudster at PRASA. They tainted me. The following day, they went to the media, they published my stories like I don't know. And I thought the contract between me and my employer is a confidential contract. Did they have to go to the media? They didn't have to. They announced in the media that they were going to sue me for 58 million. Bring it on, I thought. They have brought it on. So over and above the trumped-up charges that I have, by the way, I have been charged, together with Tiro Halelele, for appearing at the State Capture Commission. It is one of the charges that we have to deal with, right? And this is happening now. We both are still employees of PRASA. We will not go. They will not chase us out. When they fired us, we took them to court. 3 cases later, we won. And we said, pay us. You might not want us in, but you're going to pay us. But having said that, even though we are being paid, Doctor, when you spoke about Themba Maseko and the fact that he was running away from creditors, I look at 087 numbers and 021 numbers and I know I'm not answering those calls. That's the financial position I find myself to date. Tiro in the same position. I owe lawyers over R1 million in legal fees. I have to wrap my head around it and say, is it R1 million? Is it 1,000, 100,000? Yeah, because I don't know how I got there that quickly. But that's my reality right now. I've had to sacrifice my salary to pay lawyers. I've had to sacrifice going to a psychologist because I couldn't afford it. My child needed a psychologist. I had to then put her first. She was doing matric last year. So you can imagine the realities of what one has had to deal with. A lot has been said about the legislation. A lot has been said about the protection of whistleblowers. I am still here. I still have to pay the lawyers. I still have to live. Even though I am being paid by PRASA, I still cannot afford to continue on the basis that I am able to meet the obligations that I have. So I'm just standing here and saying to you, that is our experience. Oh, and by the way, over and above that, I have a lawsuit of 45 million rands against me by PRASA on a matter which I led internally and won for PRASA. Instead of executing against the company that lost, they sued me to recover that money. Now, I've had to employ lawyers for that as well. So at this current moment, there are about 3 to 4 legal processes that I'm involved in that require lawyers, that require money. That's where they want to get me. And that's their intention. They're not going to win. And I've said that before. If the president does not see that he needs to act and act quickly and not pay just lip service to the protection of whistleblowers, we will do it for him. Because the bottom line is that we cannot allow this thing to continue. If I am asked tomorrow to do the same thing, I will do it, appreciating and understanding the challenges that I've had to save today. And I'm grateful, and I do believe that I'm one of the blessed ones because of the support that I've received for people I didn't know in this room. Thank you. I thought it's important for me just to reflect on that, because at the end of the day, we speak about the legislation, we speak about what needs to be done, but it's important to know our stories. I'm just a professional. That's who I am. I didn't intend or plan to become a whistleblower, but I will do it again, being required to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. I'm stumped. I don't know what to say. I thought I was a good lawyer, but so, Fadla, can you take over? Thanks.
Thanks, CEO. I think I might have to go up front. Apparently, there was some commentary that all they hear is a voice. So I'm just going to go to the front to read out the comments, especially after the very harrowing stories. Okay, so this is just to acknowledge as well the participants who have joined remotely. And most importantly, I think we've had quite a lot of engagement, and I don't want to leave anybody out. So following on the last set of comments, which I read earlier, which was just before around 11:30-ish, Nalini Maharaj, and so this is going to be mixed. So part of the comments speak to the earlier pre-tea discussion, and the rest speak to what the current panel that we have. So Nalini Maharaj states that the question should be about who does the investigation once it's reported, as those we report to might be conflicted. And if it's external, where do we get the budget from to pay these service providers? Should we consider using a set hourly rate to curb high expenditure? Next comment by Joan Delahaye says OUTA, so that's O-U-T-A, the organization, uses a secure whistleblowing platform called Whisply. I think that was in response to a comment about if there's a hotline that one could contact. Graham Christopher states that, just an observation, the concept of a central body with oversight abilities to address the protection of whistleblowers would need to be threefold. One, a repository for the protected disclosure. Two, a support structure for the whistleblowers after the disclosure. And thirdly, a mechanism to distribute that information to the correct institution to attend to the matter. I think that was also in response perhaps to a comment by our Deputy Chair, Ms. Chauhan. Jeremy Sarkin also added to that, indicating that in addition to it being anonymous, most institutions already have independent and anonymous hotlines that are managed by third parties. He also goes on to say that while some institutions have these hotlines, they are focused mostly on their mandates and not really corruption, and anonymous processes need to address corruption in both the public and private institutions. Shima Mashilo mentioned that sometimes these institutions, they get abused once the report is made formal. We then had our load shedding break. I do apologize for that. Just to skip, Mr. Obilana had also given some input. As a whistleblower, I still have no shelter, no means of income. I can't continue with my PhD studies. My wife can't continue with her studies, and our son is sent off school because of school fees. I battled depression and a stomach ulcer. I was a house owner who became a homeless person. The victims always suffer while the culprits go without punishment. There's also an acknowledgement from Pops Rampersad. Excellent contribution, Cynthia. I salute you. A further comment from Pops says, yesterday being International Women's Day, we acknowledge and salute all the whistleblowers, especially women whistleblowers. At great sacrifice to themselves and their families, they spoke truth to power and paid the price. We remember Babita Deokaran, who was assassinated, and place on record our thanks and gratitude to her family. Our thanks and gratitude also to Cynthia, Martha, Tandeka, Martina, Patricia, Adila, Ramona, for raising the bar on integrity and ethical conduct. Shirley Mlombo says, and I hope I'm pronouncing this properly, Kubuhlungu, is that correct? And then Pops also says, we will do it for him. And I think, Martha, that's quoting you perhaps, because it's in inverted commas. We will do it for him. We stand shoulder to shoulder with you, Comrade Martha. And then Nalini Maharaj indicates again, I will assist whistleblowers defend litigation for a retainer to curb high legal costs, and can ask Nadal if they can assist. Of course, that's the National Association of Democratic Lawyers in South Africa. That's all the comments for now, CEO. Quite harrowing. I think that we have run a little bit over time. CEO, I think, is just gathering his thoughts. So if I am abusing my position here, but I do see comments from the floor. If the room allows, if the meeting allows, we can run a little bit over into lunch. There was a late start because of the rain and some delays earlier this morning. So we can shift things around. It might mean staying a little bit later today, if everyone agrees. We'll move lunch to 1:30, and then it will just run. Maybe we'll do a 45-minute lunch, but we will announce, we'll do some discussions on the side. I'm going to open the floor for discussion. I know, Eric Makonyama, I see your hand. Carl, you're done. I'm just going to take maybe 3 and then allow input. So 1, 2, 3, round 1, 1, 2, round 2. Okay, Eric, but I'm going to ask Kiba to help with the mic. Eric, are you okay coming up, or are we going to move cameras? Maybe if you're not comfortable, I know we have to respect some people's wishes for privacy and not wanting to be on the platform. So if you're more comfortable speaking from your seat, you're most welcome to do so. Eric, over to you. You don't need your mic.
Okay. Thanks, Program Director. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Mukonyama. I'm the Provincial Manager of the Human Rights Commission in Mpumalanga. Indeed, I think it's even worse that we've just had these touching stories from women. I'm sitting down there and I'm asking myself, but who are these whistleblower protectors? Or who should they be? Because I think generally because of the trust deficit we have in the country now, I'm not even sure that the idea of having some agency would ultimately even help, because who still trusts who? You know? So for me, and unfortunately, we can't give up. It is painful. There is no safety net out there, but we can't give up. I was, just thinking about huge public awareness campaigns, so that we capacitate and we educate our communities. But I think at the end of the day, it boils down to who are the protectors. If the protectors themselves have now turned into being the destroyers of whistleblowers, then I think we have a very serious problem. And I think we must look at it from that perspective, that we must start engaging on first finding solutions around finding who these protectors are or should be, because I don't think the two ladies who have shared their experiences with us, your stories would encourage anyone to become a whistleblower. I don't think if anyone would have heard you, they would hereafter blow the whistle, because what value do you get out of whistleblowing? Actually, it is very dangerous. So basically, we shouldn't even be talking about protection of whistleblowers, because at things stand now, there is no protection. And there's no point in having laws if in practice people do not get any kind of protection. So I just thought I should share these feelings and inputs I have now, and I think we need to engage more about the protectors. There's no point in saying they must be protected, there must be laws, if we do not have the protectors, because everyone is asking themselves, if I do blow the whistle, will I be protected? If I will be, by who? Because everyone now has failed to do the protection. So who are the protectors? Thank you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I'm Carl Jordan, a researcher at the Commission for the Whistleblower Project, particularly. My first point relates to something raised by Advocate Kaleka this morning, and that was about the fact that any whistleblower reform or even at a broader level, any anti-corruption mechanism must be undergirded by a change in mindset. You spoke about ethical values within organizations. And I agree with this point. You know, what is the collective mindset when it comes to corruption and whistleblowing? How do we feel about irregular spending of public funds? And then you alluded to the fact that public procurement processes were also a central pillar in the Zondo Commission, in the report and the recommendations, which we have mostly read. Now, obviously, public procurement is susceptible to corruption for a number of reasons. Number one, because there's large sums of money involved, right? But another reason is that public procurement is particularly susceptible to corruption because we have a procurement system that is run by entities who, in principle, do not have a commercial mindset. So generally speaking, government departments are run by people who would not be directly affected if public funds were lost. They wouldn't suffer personal financial harm. And another important reason, I think, is that public officials are not remunerated on the whole according to performance-related factors. Yeah, but then importantly, in the public sector, we seem to have a culture of silence, a widespread lack of accountability. So public officials on aggregate, we do have exceptions. We were reminded of that today, and I'll get back to that now. But on aggregate, public officials are very reluctant to blow the whistle on their colleagues, even when they know that there is something wrong. So I guess my question to you, Advocate Gcaleka, and we can obviously take this further tomorrow in the closed sessions, is how do we begin changing the mindset in the public sector while remaining in the exact same environment with all the non-commercial mindsets and the way public officials are remunerated, etc. It's just I don't yet see how we would get around that. And then to go to the presentations we've just heard, firstly, I need to echo the thoughts that have already been raised. Thank you for that. It was at times quite overwhelming to hear just the extent of your respective experiences, different as they might be, terrible all the same. And a thought that occurred to me a while ago is, it is often said that the ultimate price paid by some whistleblowers is the loss of their life. And obviously we would agree with that, the loss of life for telling the truth. There is no greater price. But I think that just before a significant whistleblower, and by significant, I don't mean the type of person, I mean in terms of the magnitude of what they're about to expose, the biggest fear of a whistleblower, I think, just before making a relevant disclosure is not their job, is not their personal safety, is not even their life. I think the biggest fear is that after making the disclosure, nothing will change. And I think that makes this summit that we're all here for today and for the next 3 days much more important, because it shows, and also the reference to the protest suicide of Ms. Cynthia Stimple, I think confirms this, because there someone took their own life because there is no change. I've blown the whistle. I've come out on the irregularities, on the bullying or the abuse or whatever it might be, yet things remain the same. And so I think a related point from that is protecting whistleblowers is important in and of itself, but at the same time, it is a very effective anti-corruption measure, and therefore it is also a means to an end. Protecting whistleblowers, it is important both for the whistleblowers themselves and also society as a whole, because obviously when we bring down corruption, we are most likely going to see an increase in equality and human dignity and fulfillment of the constitutional project. Thank you.
Give me a second. Thank you, Kyle and Eric. I know that Well, the third hand was you. Are you comfortable coming up? Or okay, if you can just introduce yourself and then your question to the floor, the panel, and then public protector, and I recognize you. And of course, our colleague from Ghana. Just before you start, one, two, can I just get another show of hands? Who was for the next round? It was my sister and then Stephen and one in the front. Right, got you. Okay, thanks.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Tobile Matonsela from GIZ. And great program in the morning, great contributions. But my observation in all the whistleblowing conversations and reform and change is business, the deafening silence of business. I think there are a lot of whistleblowers in corporates because also we have to think there's a corruptor and a corruptee. And a lot of information, sort of spotlight is given or shown to taxpayers' funds. But we are not sort of looking or concentrating on who the corruptors are. And that to me is the deafening silence of business. Where are they? Where is their commitment to say we are fighting corruption firstly, secondly, protecting whistleblowers? Because you find in corporate, there are whistleblowers, but they're slapped with a settlement and a non-disclosure, and that's it. So how do we get business into the table? I think, and that's my question to the floor. How do we get business on board to the reform so that we are not only concentrating on state resources, but on the whole culture of corruption in the country? Thank you.
Thank you. Are you comfortable coming up? Whilst you are taking the stand, I was going to say the podium. Professor Richard Callan states great stuff, as I tried to say earlier, providing whistleblowers or potential whistleblowers, that is before they actually take the step, with independent, safe, expert and affordable legal advice and ongoing guidance is really an important piece of the jigsaw. If you could introduce yourself.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patricia Mashali. I'm from the South African Police Service. I'm going to read you an article that was written on 15 January 2010. Free State Police Boss under fire. The police watchdog has recommended that the Free State Police Chief and some of his deputies be fired due to fudge crime statistics, the abuse of travel allowance, and giving jobs to pals. The Independent Complaints Directorate, it was still ICD by the time, has recommended that Free State Police Chief and some deputies be disciplined over irregularities in the Province Police Service, Volksblad reports. These irregularities contained in a report by ICD Chief in the Northern Cape, Dan Murema, included the manipulation of crime statistics, the misuse of travel allowances, and unauthorized appointments of 36 people, mostly friends and family members. These posts were never advertised, the newspaper said. It said Murema was awaiting feedback from Police Minister Natin Tetwa's office after making recommendations on how to discipline Chief of Police Amon Mashego and his management. The probe into the provincial management of the police service was reportedly ordered by President Jacob Zuma's office after George Mashali submitted complaints to the president. Mashali told Fox that he would, before the end of the week, request Zuma to remove Mashego as chief of police. We sick and tired of corrupt people. I want to give President Zuma credit. He has kept his promise to investigate all complaints about corruption. He was quoted as saying, in the report, Murema reveals that Provincial Chief of Crime Intelligence, Joey Kers, has given incorrect crime statistics to the Minister of Police during a visit in January 29. Mashali's complaint said Kers was warned the figures were incorrect and Mashego was aware of that. Another complaint was that Mashego ordered 2 police officials to drive his official vehicle and a government vehicle to Pretoria while he flew there. One official said he had done so to obtain a warning statement, which he failed to do. In another incident related to expense claims, 2 deputies, Pierre Leroux and Tapelo Mamabolo, reportedly attended the funeral of Mashego's father-in-law and claimed travel and accommodation allowances. According to Mashali, Mamabolo was given a lift and still claimed expenses, to which the report by the ICD stated no policy could be found to justify their trip. It was also found that Mashiko's secretary, following his orders, traveled to Pretoria with a government vehicle to fetch documents and a cell phone. Apparently, they could not be sent by mail or courier. She also attended a sporting event that a child participated in and claimed travel and accommodation expenses. No comment was given by Mashiko's office because the case was still sub judice. That was 2010. John, when everyone was talking, I realized that I started this back in 2010 already. I reported the corruption in the police in 2010. Like in the article stated that ICD did investigate and they did make recommendations to the then National Commissioner, Becky Cele. And nothing was done. Becky Cele flew to Free State one day and he just removed the management to other provinces. I still have the report and I've been writing to Becky Cele since 2010 to say, but you never implemented the recommendations of the report. And some of these people are still in the police. Joey Kers is the head of crime intelligence in the Northern Cape. Now, after that, my husband was a reservist in the police and he also reported corruption. He was arrested, trumped up charges against him and two of his colleagues. They were detained for 10 days without being charged. We had to find a lawyer to go to the High Court to get him out. And it was also all over in the papers. They were corrupt. They were in business with Nigerians, drugs, car theft, everything. And then after 4-5 months, the charges were dropped because there was still no charges against them. And my children were still very small at the time. The police came with their father, cuffed to our house. And they searched our house. They took all our personal documents, my children's personal documents, our IVs, everything. Our cell phones was also taken then. And still today, we don't know what happened. Nothing happened, still today. And now, I'm going to read you another story that was recently in the paper. That's the police service one corruption fighting whistleblower, Patricia Mashali, to disappear. Under the guiding hand of Police Minister and disgraced former National Police Commissioner Becky Cele, the South African Police Service has been increasingly following in the same brutal, corrupt footsteps as its apartheid preceded. And then it does not hesitate to turn on its own. In the early 90s, a security police officer was murdered before he could expose his white colleagues who were stealing petrol from police stores. The corruption appetites of the new power elite have grown with the eating, according to political analyst Paula Zulu, and it's the very many police officers who take seriously their oaths of office to report any suspected wrongdoing to management, regardless of who the wrongdoers is that are in the firing line. In the Free State, Senior Administrator Patricia Mashali is at the front of this line. The usual weapon is dismissal, using unfair labor practice or expeditious disciplinary actions. But the way in which Mashali has been targeted by her colleagues during the past few months points to her own life and possibly the lives of family members being in danger. She has now heard that there are plans to arrest her on a trumped-up charge of perjury and remove her to somewhere far away from home without registering details on the police system. She fears that they want to make her disappear. As a senior and experienced administrator in a unit dedicated to priority crimes, Mashali has dutifully reported corruption, including irregular appointments and promotion, and firearm-related criminality to her line managers or to the Hawks. The current wave of persecution started after she shared a dossier of corruption in disciplinary hearings and how it was being used to settle score to the National Commissioner, Ketla Sitole, in January 2021. It was never acted on but details were properly leaked to his former Free State colleagues. Initially, a charge of misconduct for reporting to Sithole was opened, but it was not pursued. Then a case of harassment was opened against her by one of those she had named in the dossier, and her personal cell phone was illegally seized by police officers. Months later, it's not been returned to her, despite the illegality of the seizure having been drawn to the attention of the National Head of Legal Services 6 weeks ago, with a request that it be returned. She's now also under surveillance. On 21 November, the car she usually drives to collect her son from a boarding school a long distance away, which was driven by her oldest son, was followed all the way home by police officers in unmarked vehicles, who, on finding that she was not in the car, lost interest. Severely traumatized, she sought professional assistance, and when she handed in a medical certificate, was instructed to ask the therapist to put a diagnosis, depression, on it. He refused to do so. In January, she was informed that she would have to attend an expeditious disciplinary hearing to be chaired by one of the members whose irregular promotion she has reported, leading to his reversal, and he was demoted. The Human Rights Commission has intervened, having given her the whistleblower status. 2 weeks ago, she discovered that the personal phone she is now using has been hacked. She cannot access her emails, and her bank has informed her that her personal details have been leaked. The latest development, the threat of an unprocedural arrest, is linked to the harassment case opened against her in 2021. Having obtained a protection order herself against the management member, Mashali has challenged his action through a rescission application, which, following several postponements, is set to be heard on 13 April. She has been informed that the charge she now faces is one of perjury for submitting an affidavit to the family court stating that a protection order obtained against her had been set aside, which it has been pending a rescission application to be heard together with a management members met in April. Mashali has been given a support to hundreds of Free State officers who have been irregularly dismissed. Advocate Lisela Tefo, from whom she and others receive legal assistance, has won many cases to reinstate illegally dismissed workers, and the police service refused to reinstate them, despite several labor court orders. They have now discovered that despite supposedly having been dismissed, these officers have never received dismissal letters signed by the National Police Commissioner, and the details are still reflected on the police service administration system. Their contribution to the GPF and the South African Revenue Services continue, but they are not getting their salaries. Who is pocketing their salaries? They have attempted to open fraud and corruption charges against police management, but they have allegedly been told to change their statements before cases are to be registered. At least one other police officer has been threatened with malicious and serious criminal charges. This is what has been happening to me. I slept at my house 2 weeks ago. I'm in hiding. I speak to my children on video call. They don't know where I am. I have to tell my 10-year-old that I'm out with work while I'm already dismissed. I've been dismissed without a trial. Last week, I saw on 1st March that my salary has not been deposited. I query at work and I realized that my salary has already been stopped in January because my medical aid wrote me a letter to say they were not paid. So yeah, this is what I'm facing now. And what I want to tell you that whistleblowers in the workplace are being rewarded. Yeah, with promotions, with incentives. Keep quiet, and this is going to happen. I've been in the police since 2007. I'm a final year law student. I don't even apply for post anymore because I will never be promoted. I will not go anywhere as long as the likes of Becky Cele, General Sithole, Free State Subs Management. I heard when you speak here, Cynthia, you talked a lot about Free State. Free State is a hub of corruption. There is where corruption was bred. And I was in such a difficult position that wherever you go to the premier, she called the MEC of police. The MEC called the provincial commissioner. And then everything just closed in on you. So I'm here today to say that as long as we don't get support, in SAPS, legislation that doesn't exist anymore. It's just there on paper. Like I said, members have been dismissed under the wrong acts. Hundreds and hundreds of members, they out. They dismissed me under the same wrong act. 2 days later, they asked me to come and sign for the correct act. And I asked myself, but how does this happen? And my mistake was to trust the National Commissioner and report the Free State management to him. The National Commissioner was the one who revealed my identity. Right after that, I was charged criminally. My phone, my personal phone, was taken by force. I was in the office, administration like in the police. 3 police, armed police officers came to my office, closed the door, and took my phone by force. October 14, 2021. I'll never forget that date. And up to this day, my phone have never been returned to me. My accounts has been hacked. You know what, when that most basic things, when we talk about human rights, have been taken away from me, where you cannot read the school group WhatsApp where your child was supposed to submit something, and he asked you on that date, but Mama, didn't you read the message? And you realize, but I don't have anything here. You cannot access your banking app to buy electricity. And then you ask yourself, but how does this still happen in this day and age? But it happens. Happens to me, happens to Cynthia, happens to Martha. And I've been writing numerous letters to the president. It's there. I have proof. I've got responses. But it's after Advocate Panyana intervened 2 weeks ago. Now people are starting moving, but I don't know whether I'm going to get what I deserve. Just give me, you know what, I don't even know how to describe it. Because I said here in Joburg, only John know I'm here, you know I'm here. My family don't know where I am. I was collected from a guest house, which I pay from my own pocket, not receiving a salary. And when I leave here, I must book again somewhere because I cannot go back to my house. There's a white double cab bakkie with police officers looking for me. So yes, I might be killed. I might die. Will I do it again? Of course, I will do it again because I want to live with myself and look myself in the mirror. Thank you.
Patricia, thank you so much for sharing that story. I think it's not even a story, it's a lived experience and it's ongoing. And the mere fact that there is a coordinated campaign, I'll call it an attack at so many levels. We appreciate you being bold and brave enough to share that in a somewhat, it's closed, but also public, just to assure you that it's just those who have logged in that would have had access to what you said, just to secure and give you some comfort. Can I propose, I know that I purposely didn't want to cut Patricia because I think it's part of the cathartic process also to share. And this is a room where we are allowing for open discussion and engagement. If the 3 colleagues, the participants that were going to speak, if you will permit that we take your comments after lunch, so we can just pause, have the lunch break. When we resume, I'll give you the floor. I think there were 3 hands. Was it 2 or 3? Deputy Public Protector, then my colleague on the left. And I think there was maybe one more. We'll allow for that, and then we will resume with my colleagues from Ghana. Oh, yeah, Stephen, you also had a question. So we'll defer to the next session. We will have a discussion with the, I think, International Whistleblowers Network, as well as our colleagues from the Ghanaian National Human Rights Institution, which is our sister body in Ghana. On that note, I'm going to say we break for lunch. It is 1:33. CEO, I take direction from you around, should we say 45 minutes? Can we resume at 2:15? Same venue. Lunch is just through the hallway past the reception desk where you came in. And then for our online participants, we will log back in at about, or it will keep running. You're welcome to stay on the platform, but we will resume at 2:15 p.m. Thank you so much. We all know because me and oh wow.